Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Hi there. I live in a small town in the Deep South. I've lived on this corner in my neighborhood for over 25 years. In the last 5 years or so, my neighborhood has really been coming up with very nice new construction. My house was very old and worn out, so in 2021, I tore it down and built a new one in its place. I just moved back 4 months ago. I'm recently retired local law enforcement, and I'm enjoying some well-deserved rest. Last week, I was enjoying watching some reruns on my sofa when my doorbell rang. I quickly checked the camera and saw a white SUV parked out on the street and some middle-aged woman I had never seen before standing at my door. I opened the door to greet her. She introduced herself as Karen, the president of the HOA. I just looked at her. She said she hadn't heard from me about my HOA dues. She said she sent me a couple of letters, then tried my door a few times. I just grinned. I told her I received the letters, but threw them away thinking it was a scam. There is no HOA. Never has been and never will be. Clearly, she didn't realize that I am the same guy who lived in the old white cracker house on this same corner. She noticed my fairly thick southern accent and started talking down to me like I was some kind of ignorant bumpkin. Through her condescending smile, she told me that since I am new to the neighborhood, I obviously didn't understand how things work here, and if I didn't bring my delinquent HOA dues up to current, she would put a lion against my home, and if I still refused to pay, she could take my house. Then she gave me that arrogant smile again and asked if I could afford to lose my home over a few missed payments. The pleasantness left my face, and I moved into that deep, serious voice I developed early in my police career. You just threatened to take my home through illegal means. You are trespassing on my property. You will leave now. If you ever return, I will shoot you where you stand. She started to say something, but I leaned towards her and continued. I am not threatening you. I am telling you. If you ever step foot on my property again, I will put several holes through your body. You will die. Right here in front of my door. Now leave. Obviously, I'm not going to shoot some unarmed woman, but she didn't know that. The seriousness of my voice did the trick and frightened her away. She stumbled backwards and very quickly walked back to her SUV. I figured she would call the police, so I sat there watching the camera. I could see her sitting in her SUV talking on the phone. Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, local PD arrived. Did I mention that I'm retired local law enforcement? Many of the local guys trained with me back in the day when I was still in uniform, and most of them worked with me when I was a DEPT analyst. Yeah, they all know me and know that this is my house. As I watched the camera, I saw the cop get out of his car. It was a friend. Let's call him Bob. I watched as he stood out in the street talking to the frantic Korean. I can only imagine what she was telling him. As I saw him start to approach the house, I stepped outside. Karen began to follow him up my driveway, but I pointed and told her she was not allowed on my property. And now get... Bob turned to tell her to stay back, but my little, the statement infuriated her, which was the point. She tried to push past Bob, but he grabbed her arm to stop her. She turned and shouted at him to let her go, then slapped Bob in the face. That ended about as well as you'd imagine. Still holding her arm, Bob maneuvered her face down on my driveway and handcuffed her. She was still screaming some rather rude things. By now, I was out by the street with them. I gave Bob a cute smile and asked him if that hurt. He gave me a nasty look and tried not to laugh. All of this commotion had the neighbors out as well. One of the newer neighbors came up to me to ask what was going on with the HOA lady. HOA lady? I asked him to clarify. He said that when he moved in around 8 months ago, she had introduced herself as the HOA president, and he had been paying HOA dues to her ever since. Bob overheard this and gave me the look. He got her up and into the back of his patrol car and called a detective. The detective, we'll call her Shirley, arrived and started taking statements, then started knocking doors in the neighborhood. Apparently, Karen has been scamming most of the newer people in my neighborhood for over a year for HOA dues. She was arrested for battery on law enforcement and resisting arrest, and is awaiting the state attorney's office to build a felony case for her HOA scam. Since she has money and she is not a local and a definite flight risk, she is being held on an insanely high bail. I met my fiancé when he was in the U.S. on a student visa. I'm white and he's Korean. I was a bit worried that his parents wouldn't like me. I watched too much 90 Day Fiancé LOL. I met them through FaceTime countless times, and they really liked me. I would say his mother liked me more than his father. His father is very rigid, but he's a very nice man. When I met them in August, it was all amazing, and I felt so welcomed, accepted, and loved by them. It was a bit different from my upbringing. I love my parents, I do, but I was raised with my mom emotionally manipulating me. I can even tell that my mom doesn't like my fiancé or has her concerns since we're proceeding with the Con-Fiancé visa. I understand every parent has their concerns, but the way she addressed them to my fiancé was completely unhinged. I had many therapy sessions after her blowing up on my fiancé over the phone. At that point, I wouldn't have blamed my fiancé if he wanted to break up over my mom's unhinged reaction. But he didn't, and we talked it all over. He's such a good person, I don't deserve him. My fiancé parents had my fiancé study in the U.S., and that's how we met. My fiancé was in U.S. for 4 years, and my future father-in-law even worked in the U.S., and he loves it here. My fiancé comes from a very wealthy and established family, which is great, but my future father-in-law always reminds me that I'll be set for life and my future baby will be set for life. I was raised always being worried about money, so it feels weird that I'm marrying into a rich family. The other day when I was hanging out with my future in-laws without my fiancé, it wasn't really what I expected. His parents told me they have concerns of my fiancé moving to New York due to racism, no Korean diversity, and the safety there. I was surprised by this. My fiancé never told me they had concerns. I explained to them where we're going to live is a safe area, and there's many Korean areas near us. My future in-laws know I don't want to live in South Korea due to the language barrier. I would love to live there in the future, when I do better at learning the language and we get the visa situation sorted. I want our future child to experience life in South Korea and to celebrate their Korean culture. The whole conversation was so awkward, but I made sure to answer all of their questions in a respectful manner and listen to all of their concerns. They told me that they are parents and they are all allowed to have these concerns. I agreed and told them their concerns are very much valid and I'll do anything to help them feel comfortable. I also expressed to them I'll give their son an amazing life in New York. Later that day, his dad told me that he's not happy that his son switched majors for his new career. I told him I understand and I support whatever my fiancé wants to do as a career and what makes him happy. I also mentioned that my fiancé is really brilliant and is meant for his new career. His dad told me that he put so much time and effort for his son to be in the career he picked for him. I reminded him that as his fiancé, I want him to do what makes him, and we all need to support him. I talked to my fiancé afterwards, and he was shocked. He didn't expect his parents had these concerns, and he said they should have told him, and not me. He told me he loves New York and prefers it over South Korea. He even thinks New York is much more diverse, and he doesn't like that South Korea lacks diversity. He even said he feels there is more racism in South Korea, and that no one even in South Korea even acknowledges the racism there. He said to me numerous of times, not just over what his parents said. As for his major and career change, he said he has a passion for his new major and career. Also, my fiancé had a health concern, and his past career wouldn't be good for him. That's why he switched, and he's more than happy now in his new major. He seems so passionate to be a data scientist, and he's going to be so good at it. I swear my fiancé has the perfect brain to be a data scientist. The other night I went out to dinner with my fiancé dad and his friends. My fiancé was running late, so I agreed to meet him there. My fiancé dad got very drunk and went off saying how my son could have been the perfect pilot and emphasizing my son the pilot. I just sat in my seat quietly, and then a little while later my future father-in-law's friend told me I should be an English teacher in South Korea. I smiled politely and said maybe in the future. Then my future father-in-law drunkenly told his friend how beautiful I am, and that he's giving his son to me so I can marry him. He also took my hand and told me that in Korean culture, the love a father-in-law has for his daughter-in-law is the more important type of love. He continued by telling me that he loves me so much, and I just sat there like, I love you too. I'm shocked by all of this. I don't know why his parents aren't communicating to my fiancé the concerns they have, like why does it have to go to me? when my fiancé has no idea they even had these concerns. Also, I feel like they blame me that he changed his path, but yet again my future father-in-law loves me. I'm just so confused and I need all the advice I can get. Backstory. When I was 20 years old, I worked for an auto parts company. I was a cashier ringing customers up on a busy day. I'm usually laid back and very lenient when it comes to returns due to the customer is always right or some shit. A guy walks in with a battery, places a battery on my counter and selects 1 quart of engine oil. The man comes back to the counter and tells me that he needs to return this battery for warranty due to it not holding a charge immediately. I recognize the brand of battery, which is a brand that we do not sell. In fact, our rival company sells it. I had explained this to the customer, but he was not having it. He said he knows he bought it here and was demanding a refund. I tell him again, I'm not going to refund something that wasn't sold at this store. I then call the rival auto parts store, take down the man's information, and see if it was purchased at one of their locations. The store verified that indeed it was purchased at one of their locations and that it was still under warranty. I tell the customer this, and still he is not having it. He tells me I need to do my fucking job. I reply to him sternly, but still in a professional manner, I'm doing my job. I'm actually going above and beyond my job, so I could easily say you didn't have a warranty and just sell you another battery. I have no business calling my rival company for something like this, so I went out of my way to tend to your needs, and you're still telling I need to do my job. If you can tell me how that makes sense, I will give you a battery. The customer had no answer and began to berate me verbally and cussing me out, saying he's going to come back with a gun and handle business. He also commented on my physique and said that steroids are affecting my brain, and that's the reason why I don't know how to do my job. I was in decent shape as a 20-year-old due to not having a social life. I would spend 8 hours. At work, go home, and study. I also frequented a gym. A lot I would spend 8 hours at a local Emma gym, just lifting weights, boxing, jiu-jitsu, and a couple other things. I enjoyed every minute of it, and it kept me out of trouble. Going back to the incident, the man then made a comment as to, I need to smile more often when talking to customers. At this point, I was already irritated. I responded with, well, how about I just fucking tap dance for you, and then started tap dancing in front of him. I was about a foot away from him when this happened. The man proceeded to throw the quart of oil in my face. Hitting me in the nose, I immediately reacted with the front kick to his chest. The kick pushed him back a bit, so he began to rush me. I dipped my right shoulder forward and brought my left elbow to his nose. It was like a modified spinning back elbow. I can feel that man's nose crack on my elbow. The customer fell down and began to cry with blood dripping from his nose. When this happened, magically my line of customers got shorter and I saw a few had switched to another register lines. I helped the next customer with no issue. Then I thought to myself I should probably call the cops. I told my store manager about the incident and he called the cops. My store manager was a friend of mine and trained with me at the gym. He pulled up the video and commented how my foot placement needs work. Police arrived and the man began buying me for assaulting him, but the customers vouched for me and the footage on the camera matched the customer's statement, so the guy was arrested for aggravated assault. The police officer that stayed behind to get the video evidence kept rewinding in the video and laughing. As the customer was leaving in handcuffs, he kept repeating that he was going to come back for me. The police officer asked my store manager if he wanted the guy trespass the store manager, left it up to me, and I said, no, let him come back. A little bit after I left that job, I joined the military, served for 10 years, and then became a cop in a small town. My soon-to-be wife was also at the store when the whole thing happened. She later revealed to me that that same guy had tried to get her phone number and then called her a wetback for saying no to him, and said if he took her now, the cops wouldn't do anything because she was illegal. Man, you won't believe the craziness I stumbled into at the supermarket the other day. So I'm at this massive store, right? It's the kind where you need a GPS to find your way out. I'm just doing my usual grocery run, grabbing snacks and essentials, trying to avoid those tempting ice cream aisles. After what feels like a marathon, I finally hit the checkout and I'm mentally high, fiving myself for surviving the ordeal without buying half the store. Mission accomplished, or so I thought. I lug my bags out, weaving through the aisles of parked cars in that sprawling parking lot. It's hot as hell, and I'm just thinking about getting home and into the AC. That's when I spot this chaos near my car. There's this lady, let's call her Karen, giving this dude in a car the third degree. Now, this guy is sitting there, chill as a cucumber, but Karen's going off like it's the end of the world. I overhear her saying something about him faking a disability. Seriously, what kind of person does that? Anyway, I'm about to mind my own business, but then she starts this whole tirade about needing a good spot because she's got heavy stuff to load. I figure, why not be a good Samaritan? I tell her, hey lady, you can take my spot. I'm heading out anyway. You'd think I just slapped her. She turns to me, all high and mighty, and goes, mind your damn business. Real charming, right? Back to the poor dude in the car. He's handicapped, and he's explaining it to her as calmly as one can in such a ridiculous situation. Karen, of course, isn't having any of it. She's got entitlement written all over her, probably tattooed on her forehead too. I decide to play the hero again, tell her to chill, and insist she takes my parking spot. This time, she goes full Hulk mode. I say Karen like it's some magic word. That's when she loses it. She hears the magic word, Karen, and it's like someone flipped a switch. She goes ballistic, starts throwing punches at the poor guy who's just sitting in his car, probably wondering what cosmic forces led him to this particular parking spot. I don't know what possesses people to act like that, man. I start yelling at her, telling her she's crazy, and dial 911 faster than you can say Karen gone wild. Meanwhile, I'm trying to record this on my phone, thinking this is gold for the internet. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cops roll in, sirens blaring. They pry Karen away from her victim. I tell him to press charges, and he gives me a nod of appreciation. I promise to be there, front row, if he needs a witness. Update. All right, so here's the scoop on what went down after the Koranocalypse at the supermarket. After the cops hauled Karen away, the poor guy she attacked, let's call him Dave, was shaken up but grateful for the cavalry that arrived just in time. I stuck around, offered him a bottle of water I had in the trunk, being the unsung hero with refreshments. We got chatting while waiting for the police report or whatever. Turns out Dave is a regular at that store. He comes in every week, grabs his groceries, and minds his own business. Dude's a veteran too, served his country and all that. Now I'm thinking, if anyone deserves a hassle-free parking spot, it's this guy. We exchange stories about the absurdity of life, bonding over the shared experience of dodging Karen's wrath. Dave tells me he's had run-ins with entitled folks before, but this takes the cake. I mean, who punches someone over a parking spot? Karen, that's who. Anyway, the police finish up with formalities. They take my statement, check the footage on my phone, which I happily provide, feeling like a mini superhero with my evidence. Dave presses charges, and I assure him I'm ready to spill the tea in court if it comes to that. As we're standing there, swapping stories, a crowd starts to gather. You know how it goes? Word spreads like wildfire in a suburban parking lot. Everyone's got their smartphones out, recording, probably hoping to be the next viral sensation. We become the impromptu stars of the day. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. I just remembered this while talking with a friend I worked with at this fast food chain. It wasn't a Wendy's, but that doesn't seem important for this post. Just know it was a fast food chain. I was a cashier at this place in high school. The food was mid. My coworkers were awesome, and we went through more managers than parents do McDonald's lines. The story starts with a mom and her 2 children. She came into our little establishment, ordered 2 kids' meals, then left, leaving behind her 2 little kids. I had never spent much time with children and don't really like them, so 2 adultless children in our dining room gave me a lot of anxiety. Are they okay? Can you leave them alone? They aren't going to self-implode, right? I had a job to do and a dining room to clean. After thinking on it, I decided I could clean and just ignore them. That was when I noticed they weren't sitting at the booth doing whatever it is kids do when left to their own devices. They were under the table creating art on the wall with ketchup packets.
I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing.
4 hours passed and she came waltzing in to collect her spawn. Okay, I was fairly accustomed to weird stuff happening, but this is manager notifying worthy. I popped my head into the deep freezer where she was doing inventory and let her know what was going on. And why didn't you come get me earlier? She asked. I don't know. I thought I could handle it. I'm a big, scary teen, and they're, well, toddlers. Okay, not my best move, but now aware of the situation and armed with camera footage. My manager lets me know she will deal with her next time. 2 days later, and she gives us around 2. Another 2 kids, meals. This time, I don't wait and tell the manager ASAP. My manager serves this lady with and don't forget your kids this time, passing her a slip of paper. On the paper was the phone number to a local daycare that charged based on income of the family. Issue handled, I go out to clean tables and find these kids drawing on the table with salt. My manager got irate. 4-ish hours later, Mom is back for her kids and my manager approaches. They go outside to have a tense conversation that ends with the woman storming off with her kid. I later found out she was pissed my manager assumed they were poor. My manager was ready for round 3 a week later. She came in, same order. This time my manager takes her order. When I go out to hand her the kids' meals, she is gone, leaving behind her kids. Cops arrived real quick, then child services, then the kids were gone and our little fast food chain went back to normal. That was for the next 4 hours. Side note, I am autistic. Not like very obviously autistic, not the kind that needs a ton of assistance, but a mild brand that will occasionally say the oddest thing. So keep that in mind when Mom came back. Where are my kids? Oh, it's you again. I'm smiling behind counter. A couple of guys came in and took them. She went pale. Guys? What guys? What did they look like? When did they take them? What were doing that you weren't watching them? Well, I didn't get their names, but they looked big and strong and promised to take good care of them. I didn't talk to them, though. It wasn't any of my business. I'm a cashier, not a babysitter. I would make a bad babysitter. I don't really like kids. I used to work in a disability shared accommodation agency. It's a job where you support 4-6 people with disabilities who share the accommodation. It's shift work, 2 clients per staff member during the day, 1 staff member on a sleepover at night. The rosters are 4-week rotating rosters. I was employed as a 0.75, meaning I work 75s of what is considered full-time, equating to 57 hours a fortnight. Working shifts sucked, but the pay was good. I was working in a house I'll call Sunup. Sunup had 4 residents and 7 workers. Each house had a house supervisor. They reported to the cluster manager, who managed 6 houses. Cluster managers reports to the CEO. By company policy, leave requests are first in best dressed, meaning you need to put your leave in early to ensure you get it. I was transferred to Sunup from a 6-client house due to my qualifications and situations I cannot legally disclose. I worked for the first year, got to know staff, clients, house supervisor, etc. There was an obvious clique between 4 staff members. Each school holidays, 3 would apply for leave and 1 would call in sick with a medical certificate covering the same amount of time. They would always rotate who was sick to hide what they were up to. They were friends outside of work who would party together. After a year, the house supervisor fell sick. One of the clique members, Karen, was appointment acting supervisor and it went to hell. She tried reducing my hours and giving extra time to a friend. I pointed out that I'm contracted for 57 hours a fortnight, so I'm getting paid for 57 hours a fortnight. Her friends got extra shifts. We're given the best shifts and we're all around favored by Karen. In January, I put in leave for March school holidays. Karen rejected on the grounds that others had already submitted leave. Her clique all applied for this time. I left this alone. In March, I checked the leave calendar for the June school holidays. Each house had a leave calendar so management and staff can check who scheduled leave is. It was empty. I submitted leave again and it was rejected. Karen said, sorry, you were too slow. Karen said that ABE, text, click, already submitted leave. The next day, the leave calendar showed this. In May, I checked Xmas leave calendar, put in my leave, and sure enough, got the same result. This annoyed me as I have a family that I wanted to take on holiday. I spoke to the cluster manager, also a part of the clique, who said there's nothing I can do. Note, I had no leave taken in 2 years. January the following year, the clique was on holiday. We had a gastro outbreak across our facilities, so we were short-staffed. All available staff, including CEO, were covering shifts. I was rostered on with the CEO one shift during the shift. He said to me, "Op, you have a bit of leave accumulated. You should probably take some." I put in 3 requests last year. All were rejected as others apparently already applied for those dates. CEO, let's lock in your leave now. Okay, how about 4 weeks over Xmas? I filled out the form. CEO signed it off. He filled out the leave calendar and put my application in Karen's pigeonhole. I was on sleepover that night, so I took my application, photocopied it for myself, and replaced under the mountain of paperwork in her pigeonhole, knowing she wouldn't see it for a few months. In March, I checked the leave calendar. I noticed my Xmas leave disappeared, replaced with Karen A, B, C. I didn't say anything as I had a leave form with CEO's signature. Fast forward October, original house supervisor passed away. Acting supervisor was appointed permanent supervisor by the cluster manager with a mandatory 3-month probation. December comes around, first week of my leave. I get a call from Karen. "Where are you?" Me, on leave. "Karen, I didn't approve any leave. Get your ass to work now." I come in. Karen chews me out, stating she didn't get an application form. Karen went on to say, "Even if you submitted it, I would reject it, as you should know by now that we always take 2 weeks in December, January." She wrote me up for insubordination. I worked that shift. When Karen left, I emailed the CEO filling him in on what happened. He called a meeting me and Karen. "CEO, what happened?" Karen, cutting me off, took it upon himself to approve leave. I wrote him up for skipping work me. Actually, I submitted leave in January while you were away. Karen, no, you didn't. CEO, yes, he did. I approved it and added it to the leave calendar. Karen, we already had 4 staff booked on leave, CEO. Show me the leave, CEO. Show me the leave forms, Karen. I destroyed them. Me handing Karen my copy of my form signed by the CEO. CEO OP is on leave. I'm investigating this situation. OP, my apologies, go home. I'm extending your leave by an extra week. I go home. I come in 4.5 weeks later to be told that Karen has lost her promotion. She is thin ice. CEO found out that Karen has been rejecting leave requests. She shredded my request without looking past the date. She deleted my leave from the calendar. The CEO told Karen that this borders on fraud. The CEO also separated the clique to different houses. He changed the leave policy to state that he must sign off leave requests, in addition to house supervisor and cluster managers. He ensured that all staff had access to prime leave dates. Karen was fired 2 weeks later for failing audit requirements. Edit. Spelling correction. Edit. To clarify why the CEO did grunt work, funding bodies stipulated that during day, 1 staff was required for every 2 clients. We were short-staffed across the board. There was lots of juggling staff. All staff employed with the company not on leave were working in houses, including CEO, cluster managers, administration. They were rostered on with qualified staff who took the lead. CEO had social worker qualifications, social work experience, but no support worker experience. It was an extreme situation that could see funding withdrawn. The reason why he extended my leave by a week is because this incident took place on the Monday. CEO meeting took place on Wednesday or Thursday. Can't remember exactly. As I worked Monday and got called in for the meeting, I wouldn't have gotten my 4 weeks. This happened several years ago, back when I was part of a Christian cult church and in leadership. Also, I'm writing this on mobile, so sorry if it looks funky. Anyways, on to the story. Back when I was 22 and a young, impressionable young adult, I was part of the media team for this church. We were responsible for creating videos and flyers, as well as posting on social media and taking pictures, etc. This was volunteer work, but the pastor, we'll call him Pastor Corruption, was an anal, cold-hearted dictator of the religious institution who would often give us last-minute projects that would keep us up all night in order to make a video to play during service the next day. We averaged 3-5 hours of sleep per night, but this was while I was in school, so during this time, in order to stay on top of my homework and other projects, I would average closer to 2-3 hours per night, and to be honest, I'm not sure how I survived with only having occasional bouts of suicidal ideation and paranoia or delusions. Pastor Corruption loved money. He had a giant 6-bedroom house for himself and his wife, only complete with heated driveways and the latest model Cadillac, which sat atop of said driveway. The church building itself was overinflated, which sat close to 1,000, but maybe had a congregation of only 400 or so. More than pastor corruption loved money, he loved other people's money. 70 of the sermons were regarding how you needed to give the shirt off your back to the church, or else you didn't love God, and were going to hell, which is ironic considering that their accountant had been caught embezzling funds in the past. This went beyond tithes, which was 10 of what you make, and included pledges, fundraisers, giving for church events, and going to retreats that made a profit from the attendees. Pastor corruption and his pack of goons, aka associate pastors, who also shamed you for not giving money and being poor, would openly brag about how God blessed them after these rounds of extortion. Well, one day it is near Pastor Corruption's birthday, and his pack of goons decided that the pastor's car from last year's model was too old, and he needed a brand new car. They took a pledge from all the ministry departments to pay for said car. The minimum pledge you were allowed to make was $300, and the media team was no exception. Me, being a broke college kid with a minimum wage part-time job, decided that was impossible and I just wasn't going to pledge anything. This led to several hour-long lectures and shaming sessions about how I was seen as a leader. I wasn't seen at all since I was always working behind the scenes, and I needed to set an example. Finally, I got fed up and worn down to the point I confessed that I couldn't pledge because that would be taking all my rent money. I lived with some other leaders from the church at the time and shared a room with another girl. $300 doesn't seem like a lot now, but at the time, for not even having my own space or a place for my bed, this was highway robbery, especially for a broke college kid. A girl who lived with me, who also was lecturing me, told me just pledge the money